Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. So I have a very interesting case for tonight. There are 3 figures that I found as I was kind of just floating through one of my favorite collector's shops, kind of just perusing, and I happened upon them. And they happen to be 3 NECA figures, which are retro card styled Universal monsters, being the Mummy, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman, all 3 in glow-in-the-dark. So this is going to be a really interesting review because I'm actually not going to be unboxing them. And don't worry, I'm not sick. I know that I'm an out-of-box collector, but it's just one of those rare cases where I feel like being on the card is where these figures belong. That's where they look the most beautiful. And also, it's the best way to exemplify their retro-iness and their glow-in-the-dark abilities. So that's why I want to kind of keep them where they are as they are. So as far as I know, these figures are effectively based off of figures that were released in the 1980s. I tried perusing the internet. I couldn't quite figure out where they were from, what the branding was. If anyone knows that, please go ahead in the description and let us all know. They're very reminiscent of Kenner-style figures where they got the card, they got the bubble encasing the figure. I don't think it was Kenner, though. It might have been some other offshoot brand that no longer exists. I really don't know, but either way, all 3 of them look very good. And also, before I even got the 3 of these, or even knew they existed, I pre-ordered the New York Comic Con glow-in-the-dark Phantom of the Opera, so now we'll have a pack of 4. So I think that'll be a really fun collection to kind of build up as they perhaps roll more out, like I'm sure they'll do a Dracula, maybe a creature from the Black Lagoon, who I'm still waiting for on pre-order, goddammit, so I hope to be looking at him as well. So this is going to be a pretty quick review, if you could even call it that. We're just going to look through the figures very quickly, look at their glow-in-the-dark feature, and also compare them with their more ultimate releases that I also have over here on the side. So we'll do a little bit of a comparison, and yeah, we'll just see what these guys are like. If you have any curiosity as to whether or not they'd be fit for your collection, this is the place to be. So let's get started. Let's start off with Boris Karloff as Frankenstein, who was probably my favorite of the 3. So as you can see here, pretty much all of them have the exact same motif, where you have a picture of the actual character from the film, and then you also have this glow-in-the-dark aura surrounding the figure, looking very pretty. You also have down here, in a very retro-style font, you have NECA, Universal City Studios Frankenstein Monster, an authentic posable action figure based on classic Universal's famous Mini Monsters collection from the early 1980s. There we go. Sometimes I don't read the box before I do my video, so I apologize for that, but as long as you get your information, I guess we're good. Universal Monsters logo over there, and off to the back before we actually look at the figure. I think the backs of all these figures are pretty much the same. You have the artists who, of course, made these figures possible. You got the other figures in this line, which are currently only 3. We got Mummy, Frankie, and Wolfie, looking really good. Panning back on out, let's have a look at the actual figure himself, a look at the paint apps, compare him with the counterpart, and after we go through all 3, we will go ahead and see how they do with their glow-in-the-dark. So here he is. The paint is quite minimal, very basic painting, not a whole lot of details going on, nor should there be. Again, it's more meant to harken back to the vintage figures from way back when, 1980s, several decades. I don't feel like doing math right now, but yeah, you can expect they're going to try and keep it a little bit laid back, and they did a very good job at that. You have very pale green face with no pupils at all in the eyes. I think that looks really spooky. I like that a lot. Unpainted bolt up here, as it should be, although you do have a little bit of a red bleeding effect over there at the scar, which is on the original one as well. So actually the best way to do this is we'll go ahead and just get our Ultimate Frankenstein over here. I have him in more of a playtime, fun time pose over here. So here, yeah, he looks fantastic. Still one of my favorite reviews on this channel, and one of the oldest, in fact, if you want to check that out. But you can see there's a very distinct difference between the 2. Over here, things are a little bit more flat, but over here you have all the shading. You got the pupils, you got the teeth detailed in. I mean, it's a whole different head sculpt entirely. He had 3 or 4 of them, I believe. So yeah, these figures are 2 very different experiences. Although if you are concerned more about price and you do want your Universal Monsters collection started, then these guys are the way to go. The Ultimate figures are obviously a little bit more pricey, but I found a good deal in all 3, which is why I really wanted them. And also, again, I got the Phantom coming in. So yeah, the 2 of these guys these are both really fun. Next, we have a different character, but the same actor, Boris Karloff, once again, this time as the Mummy. And the packaging is basically exactly the same, except for, of course, you have the mummy motifs over here. You got the photograph of Karloff. You also have Mummy at the bottom. Off to the back, it is all precisely the same. As for the figure, this is where the paint differences are the least. So let's go ahead and pull in the ultimate release of him over here. Zoom on in, and you can see that, again, the shading is more reserved for the ultimate figures, as we see over here. It's very subtle when you put them side by side. Over here, it's kind of just the injection mold. Not a whole ton of paint, maybe like a little bit of a coat to protect everything that's in there. But aside from that, there's no real color work going on. Whereas over here, you can see there's a lot more dirt and soot to sort of bring out the details, the sculpt work and everything. A little bit more paint at the top as to over here. And again, different head sculpts because all Ultimate releases usually have more head sculpts. So, well, they should anyways. Not always, but almost always they do because NECA is absolutely killing it. As for the rest of the body, it's just the same color all the way through. So, not a whole lot else to discuss here. None of them come with accessories, glow-in-the-dark variants, so that's pretty much it here. Lastly, we have Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. Again, it's the exact same treatment, although he gets a bigger picture than the rest of them. It takes up more of the card, I feel like. Though you get Wolfman, the name, at the bottom. Off to the back, exactly the same, so no need to look at that once again. Although, this is probably where you get the most interesting paint variation, I feel like. I feel like it's the most distinctly different, so let's go ahead, pop back in. And you can see, looking at the face, it is a lot more minimalistic on the vintage glow-in-the-dark style figure, and over here you get all the shading and the painting that we expect from most NECA figures, and both of them look very good in their respective angles, I suppose. Like, over here, very realistic, over here, very toy-like, as he should. And yeah, it's actually kind of neat how one difference that this one has over the other is you have some blood dribble at the mouth, which I really like. Then going down, you have the wolf elements for the hands and the feet, where over here on the Ultimate release, you also had the option of changing out the human elements. So you got a human hand and a human foot on one or the other side. So I like having that variation for me personally. As you can suspect, I pulled them right off my shelf exactly as they were posed, so I'm going to leave them like that. But as for the card ones, they're staying right where they are. So that's pretty much it for looking at these figures within the boxes, but now let's go ahead into my collector's closet and see how they look when they glow in the dark. Here we are in my closet space where I'm absolutely blasting these three figures with light from the overhead, up here, and then also from here, 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 and here. So these guys are going to be pretty well fed up with light, so good thing they haven't released Dracula yet in the glow-in-the-dark, but for now, let's go ahead, turn off the lights, and see how they look. Everybody should be pretty supercharged by now. Over here we have our Frankenstein. As you can see, he glows up at the... I'm not going to try to point. You're not going to see anything. He glows up at the head, and he glows down at the hands. You also have Wolfman over here, who you can barely see at all. Unfortunately, he's the weakest of the bunch. He glows a little bit at the face. That's as close in as I can get with it being at all visible. And it looks like nowhere else, just on the face for him. So that's a little disappointing, but might be accurate to the original figure counterpart. But as for the Mummy, he glows all the way throughout. I know one side looks dark. It's just because he didn't have that other light off to the side here. But he glows a lot better in person than he does on video. So just keep that in mind. He glows almost as good as the Frankenstein over here, who is easily the best of the bunch. But anyhow, let's go back to the review room. And that is it for these figures. I mean, not a whole lot to talk about. It's pretty much exactly as you expect. I mean, aside from not being too sure what's going to glow and what isn't. Like, in the case of the Wolfman, you just had it in the face. But in the case of the Mummy, it's all throughout, which I think is awesome. I actually did get a better picture of him when I exposed him to the light a little bit more. And he definitely glows the most out of the bunch. I mean, aside from it just being, having the glow-in-the-dark paint throughout, it also has the strongest glow of the three, I feel like. That being said, I think they're a perfectly justified case of reuse, where it's kind of harkening back to the vintage figures, and that's something NECA loves to do. They love doing tribute figures, like doing Kenner tributes, they've done that a lot, video games, things like that. So NECA loves going back in time in the old DeLorean and kind of just pulling out retro concepts to integrate into more modern figures, and that's kind of just a fun thing for them to do. So I really like these. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. That's pretty much it. So if you enjoyed this video, then please, as per usual, be sure to
like, comment,
ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals, and subscribe.
This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.